Hello there, Sherri Coffelt here, your results partner. I'm so glad that you joined me for this video. I'm calling it 5 Keys to More Yeses in Your Sales Conversations. And what I really want to talk about today is how do you get more clients to say yes on those one-on-one sales conversations or strategy sessions or whatever you might call them in your business. Because we all know that sales is the lifeblood of our business. And the fact is, without sales, we don't have a business. So I guess the place to start is give me a yes, at least in your head, if you love sales. Now, if you're like most audiences, if you will, that I speak to, I do a lot of public speaking, I can get maybe 20% of the audience to raise their hand. About 1 out of 5 might be willing to say they love sales, and the other 4 out of 5, not so much. Why is that? As I said, we know sales is the lifeblood of our business, so why is it that we have this kind of aversion to the sales process? Well, in my experience working with hundreds and thousands of entrepreneurs over the last 17 years as a business coach, there are really 3 key reasons why we avoid sales. And I want to start with that. Now, the first reason that I find that we avoid sales is that we simply don't want to think we're not good at it. Yeah, we don't like to do things that we don't feel we're good at. And quite often, a lot of times, I don't think I'm good at it, honestly really is I'm not comfortable doing it. It's not that we're really not good at sales. We just aren't really comfortable in the sales conversation. We haven't found the way to make it a conversation versus something that feels stilted. So we don't think we're good at it. So we try to avoid it. Anybody feel that way? Yeah. Now, the second reason that I find that we avoid sales is this guy. We don't want to feel pushy or salesy. Who wants to be thought of as that used car salesman? Poor used car salesman, they get a bad rap, right? But who wants to feel that way? Used car salesmen have a reputation for being pushy and salesy and, like this guy, just a little slimy, right? We don't want to feel that way. So we make up that when we ask for money, that when we try to make a sale, that people are going to think that we're pushy or salesy. Now, is that really true? I don't think so, but it stops us. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that today and how we shift that. But the number one reason that I see that we avoid sales is that we don't want to be rejected. None of us want to feel like somebody's saying no to us. And we take a no in a sales conversation personally. And here's the deal. It's not personal. It's not about you when your potential client says no. First of all, they probably aren't even saying no. They're probably saying not yet. They're not ready to say yes, so they may automatically say no. But even if they are saying no, it's usually about their stuff, not about you and what you're offering. So how do we shift this feeling that we want to avoid sales? Well, I think that it starts with shifting the definition of sales. See, we have this definition of sales being pushy or something that we're going to get a no from. It's kind of sales gets a bad rap. I sometimes say that we treat sales as a 4-letter word, right? It's 5, but you get it. So how do we shift that definition of sales? Well, I believe that the frame of reference for your definition of sales gets to completely change. You see, here's how I define sales. Sales is simply the opportunity to find a match between what a potential client needs to achieve their goals and the product or service that you offer. Now, doesn't that sound a little different? You're simply looking to find out if what the client needs to achieve the goal that they're telling you that they have is a match for what you offer. And only then do you even make the offer for them to work with you. Doesn't that simple reframe change how you feel about sales? Another definition of sales that I love is from Blair Enns, and he wrote the Win Without Pitching Manifesto. And if you haven't read that book, it's a great little book that I'd invite you to read. It's Blair Enns, E-N-N-S. And his definition of sales is to help your prospect form the intent to solve their problem. Simple, right? See, sales is all about solving problems. And in fact, you are in business to solve problems. And when you get really clear on what problem it is that you solve, it's easy in a sales conversation to find out if that problem that you solve is a problem that your prospect has. And only then again do you offer them the opportunity to work with you. Make sense? Cool. Okay, so I want to get into the 5 keys to getting more yeses in your sales conversations. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And I want to go back just a bit to when I started sales. Now, I've been coaching business owners for about 17 years now, and it wasn't always easy. I remember when I first started out in sales, I was pretty bad. In fact, I was more than pretty bad. I was really bad. I remember going to networking events and handing out business cards and saying, well, give me a call if you want to talk. And you think they ever called me? Well, of course not. Or I'd have those business cards and I'd go to pick up the phone and it'd just feel like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Has anybody had that thought? The phone just feels like it's just weighted down. It's going to take you down to the bottom of the ocean almost. Or even if I did get someone on the phone, we'd have a great conversation and I would give them tons of value added. Yet at the end of the conversation, I never knew how to ask them to work with me. So I'd end the call by saying something like, well, let me know if you want to talk about working together. And of course, they never called me back. Because you see, most times people don't ask you to buy. See, we want to say yes, but we're not going to say, usually, hey, how do I buy from you? Now, the honest truth is I'm going to tell you a little secret later of my number one shift that actually has people asking you, how do you work together? So stay tuned for that. That's worth the price of admission, as the saying goes. So the point is, I was awful. Unless somebody referred me, which is where most of my business came from, to be honest, for my one-on-one clients, I really struggled to have that conversation in a way that felt natural and authentic and had people saying yes to working with me. And this went on for a long time. And I remember one particular day I had like 4 or 5 strategy sessions back to back. And if you're new to this kind of a business, a lot of times we'll refer to the sales conversation as a strategy session. And it basically just means helping the client figure out what their strategy is, what their gap is, and whether it's a good fit. So you call it a sales conversation. I call it an enrollment conversation often because I like the word enrollment versus sales. Or you can call it just plain old sales conversation. So I remember one day, this is probably 15 years ago or so, where I had 4 or 5 strategy sessions back to back. And I finished that last session and I quite honestly felt like crap. Nobody had said yes, probably because most of the calls I hadn't even asked them to say yes. And I really just sat there in my office thinking, why am I doing this? I'm giving them all this value on these calls, and yet I'm not getting paying clients out of it. I'm giving away my expertise, and yet I'm not building my business. Something has to change. That was my aha moment when I realized that I wasn't stepping into my expert role. I wasn't stepping into being the kind of coach that is confident and knows that when people work with me, they get more value than what they'd ever conceivably pay me for my services. I know I do everything for my clients within reason to have them get results. And the clients I was working with were getting phenomenal results. So it really hit me what a disservice I was doing to my potential clients by not asking them to work with me. Because by not asking them, I was cheating, in a sense, them out of the opportunity for them to solve their problem. And most of these business owners didn't have the skills that they needed to be able to build their business. They were experts, probably like you, in what their business provided, but they didn't know how to position themselves and price their products and services and design their products and services in a way that they were able to be unique in the marketplace and have people want to work with them. So I decided at that point that I was going to change my definition of sales. And that's really when I designed that definition that I showed you, where sales is simply the opportunity to find out if there's a match between what the potential client needs, the problem that they have that they need solved, and what I did, the services that I offered. And so in the last 15 years, I've developed what I call the rapid enrollment formula. And we'll talk briefly about that at the end, which is simply a 5-step formula for having this sales conversation in a way that's natural and authentic and easily leads to you asking the client to work with you. Or better yet, the client asking, how do I work with you? And then you being able to present an opportunity to work together. So what I want to talk to you about today is what I've learned over that 15 years are the keys to increasing the number of times that you get yes. Now, I want to bring up something called sales conversion here, just briefly. Sales conversion, when we talk about sales conversion, all we mean is out of X number of conversations that you have, let's say 10, how many people say yes? So if you have 10 sales conversations and 2 people say yes, then 2 divided by 10 is a 20% sales conversion. Now, I can tell you that when people are starting out in the service-based business area, whether you're a coach or an author or an expert service provider, maybe a graphic designer or a social media person or a virtual assistant, something like that, 20% conversion is pretty typical. If you're getting less than that, then honestly, we really need to talk. But generally speaking, if people could get 10 sales conversations, they'd get 2 people to say yes to working with them. Now, what I have found is that when you use the rapid enrollment formula and you use and put into place these 5 keys I'm going to talk to you about today, you can easily change your sales conversion to at least 1 out of 3, and for most people, as many as 40% or 50% conversion. So what difference would it make in your business if you had 1 out of every 2 people say yes to you to become a client? Would that change your revenue? For most people, it would be life-changing. Because if you're getting 2 people out of 10 to say yes now, and you get even, let's say, 4 out of 10, you just doubled your business, right? Without getting more leads, without spending more money on traffic, without going to more networking events, you simply get better at having that sales conversation and more often turn that conversation into a paying client. So my wish for all of you is that you move your sales conversion from that, say, 20% to at least 33%. And what I really want you to get to is more in that 40% to 50% range. Because I know that changes the entire foundation of your business. So let's talk about how you do that and what these 5 keys are. Sound good? Awesome. Okay, so let's go to the first key. Key number 1 is to build rapport. Now, we all know what rapport is. It's kind of another way to say it is the know, like, and trust factor. We buy from people that we know, like, and trust. And here's the thing with rapport. It's all about setting the stage for the conversation. And you do this even before the call ever happens. So I want to talk just briefly about rapport. So take a look at these two women. They're having coffee. The one gal is looking at the other gal, but the gal with the spoon in her coffee cup almost doesn't seem like she wants to be there, right? They clearly are not in rapport. Now, contrast that with this couple. Same two women, but look how they're leaning into each other. They're looking at the same thing on their phones. Of course, it would be our phone, right? They're clearly in rapport. Now, which situation, this one, if this is a strategy session, a live strategy session, or this one, do you think is going to turn into a sale? This one, clearly, because they clearly are getting to know, like, and trust each other. So how do you create that feeling, even if it's virtually on the phone or on a Zoom video conference, let's say? How do you create that know, like, and trust factor? Well, the fact of the matter is, as I said, it begins before the call ever starts. And there are 3 things that I want to make sure that you're doing before the call ever happens. The first thing is that you're telling your potential client what to expect. You need to be clear what's going to happen on the call. And typically this is 3, no more than 5 bullet points. I really recommend 3 of what they can expect to get out of the call. So on the call, you're going to learn what's stopping you from achieving the success that you want. Or if you're a relationship coach, on the call, you're going to learn 3 easy ways to find a date, or whatever it might be. The second thing is you want to be clear on who's calling whom. Now, this is an important one. And I'll tell you here, I recommend that you have the potential client call you, that you do not call them. And here's why. How that client shows up at the appointed time for the call is a really good indicator of what it's going to be like to work with them. If the call is scheduled for 9 a.m., do they call at 9 a.m. on the dot, ready to go? Or do they call at 9:15 and make excuses about why they're late? Couldn't find the email. Oh, I thought you were calling me. There's a lot of good information there about how people are going to be to work with. So I really recommend that you have them call you so that you can kind of get a picture into how they operate in the world. Because remember, how we show up in one place in our life is how we show up everywhere in our life. So if they're late for the strategy session, they're probably going to be late for every coaching call. If they're late for the strategy session and blaming someone else for being late, then they're probably going to show up in more of a victim mentality. It's gonna show up in when you're working with them. Now, the third thing to do before the call is to always send reminders. Now, this is critical. We are busy people today, and you need to send a reminder at least 24 hours before the call, preferably 24 hours before the call and the morning of the call, if you can. It's a really simple email. It just confirms the date, the time of the call, and confirms again who's going to be calling who, that they're going to be calling you, and again, confirms what to expect on the call. Okay, so those are 3 quick tips of how you build rapport before the call ever happens. So now let's talk about what happens when you first get on the call, because that's when it's really important that you build rapport. And the number 1 thing to do to open the call is to thank and acknowledge them for being there. You see, we don't get thanked and acknowledged enough in our lives these days. So you simply opening the call by saying, you know what, I just want to thank and acknowledge you for taking the time to be here today. I know as an entrepreneur or as a mom or whatever your ideal client is doing, I know you're busy. And I really want to acknowledge you for making the choice to be here to talk about XYZ. Goes a long way in building rapport. The second thing you're going to do on the first thing on the call is you're going to set expectations again. So the same thing that you told them in terms of what to expect before the call, you're going to confirm. Here's what the call is going to look like. I'm going to be asking you lots of questions. We're going to be exploring X, Y, and Z, and so on and so forth. Whatever your 3 points are that you said you'd cover on the call. And finally, and this is an important one, you're going to ask for permission. Now, there are a couple of things you want to do to ask for permission. Number one, you want to ask for permission to interrupt. Why would you do that? Well, here's the deal. We like to get into our stories. And oftentimes, you don't need the story in order for them to get value out of the call. So by you simply saying something like, now, I want to ask your permission to interrupt you if I need to. Sometimes we'll tend to get into a little bit too much of the story, and I don't really need to know a lot of the background details, and I really want you to get the most out of our time together. Is that okay? And get a yes. The second place you're going to ask for permission is to use and share your intuition. You're going to be putting on your expert listening skills in this call. And oftentimes, when you're really listening, you're going to hear things between the lines. You're going to hear things that aren't literally said. And you want to ask for permission to share what's coming up for you. And third, you're going to ask for permission to share with them how they can take the work with you deeper. Before you ever get into the details of the call, you're going to ask them to make an offer. How powerful is that? You've already gotten that ickiness out of the way by saying something like, now, I want you to get the most that you can out of this call. And near the end of the call, if it makes sense for us to consider working together, then I'm going to take a few minutes just to tell you about what might look like. Would that be okay? And you get a yes. So then when you go to make that transition from the meat of the strategy session to making your offer, it feels natural because you've already gotten their permission at the beginning of the call. Sound good? Does that sound easy? Yeah, you can do this, right? Okay, so that's our key number one. Build rapport, both before the call and at the beginning of the call. So let's go to key number two. Key number two is to get curious. Curious and curiosity, two of my favorite words in the English dictionary. Because when you come from a place of curiosity, you can't sound salesy. When you're just having a conversation and wanting to learn more about who this person is, what's important to them, what their pains are and what they need, people don't get listened to at that level these days. So not only does that build rapport, but talk about know, like, and trusting you. They're going to know, like, and trust you because you care about them enough to get curious about where they are. Now, getting curious is all about asking powerful questions. And powerful questions are a way for you to get clear on their vision and about where they are right now. Now, I believe that starting with vision is one of the best ways to have people see the possibility. Because when you're in this conversation, you really want people clear on why they're doing this. Why are they considering hiring a relationship coach? Why are they considering outsourcing social media? Why are they considering getting a payroll person to do their payroll instead of doing it on their own, or a virtual assistant? Asking them about their vision allows them to build a picture in their mind of what it is that they really want. Not what they kind of want or what they think they should want, but what they really, really deep down want their life to look like. Now, you also use powerful questions to get clear on the pain. Once we know that utopia is out here, so to speak, then you got to get clear on, okay, great, see where you're going. Where are you right now? And get clear on the gap between that vision and where they are right now and the pain that that's causing them. Because you see, their vision has to be bigger than any obstacle that will get in their way. But when people make buying decisions, we typically buy from either a place of wanting to go towards pleasure or getting away from pain. And the reality is that I often wish that people would buy because they want to go towards pleasure. They want to have a multi-six-figure business in the case of my clients. But the reality is most people buy because they want to avoid the pain that they're in. They are tired of not being able to pay their bills in my business, or they're overwhelmed because of all there is to do. And they're in pain about that. You get to have them be really clear on that pain by asking powerful questions. So that's our key number 2, getting curious and using powerful questions. Now here's the key with this. You can't accept surface answers. Here's our little iceberg here. We all know about the iceberg, that 90% of the iceberg is actually below the ocean, below the surface of the ocean. The same thing is true when people ask questions, answer questions, I should say. You have to be willing to get uncomfortable and ask them those deep questions to get below their surface answers. And here's where you get to take a stand for people. People want to be supported. People want to change their circumstances. And all too often, they stop because they're scared. And you being willing to ask them those uncomfortable questions and have them get really clear on the price that they're paying for continuing to do that may be the biggest gift that you can give them. So be willing to get uncomfortable. Okay, let's go to key number 3. Sound good? Awesome. Key number 3 is to identify the gap. So by building rapport and then getting curious, finding out what their vision is, what do they want versus where they are now, you get to identify what the gap is between where they are and where they say they want to be, and get crystal clear on what that gap looks like. Where are they now versus where they want to be? And more importantly, what's the price that they are paying for staying there? There are tons of great questions, and in fact, if you stay to the end, I'm going to offer you the opportunity to get access to a tool that I use around questions. It's going to, I think, save you a lot of time in coming up with some of these great questions. So stay to the end for that. So what's the price they're paying for staying in that pain? Because only when you get them very clear on what they want, what they have now, and the price they're paying for staying in that gap, do you have them truly see the impact. So there's a couple things that you can do to get to this that are really important keys. The first is that you have to stay out of their story. Remember, you don't need to know all the details. You just need to know what their pain is. So if you are a social media expert and you're talking with them about taking over doing their social media posting, then you want to find out. You say that you want to be posting 5 times a day and building your social media connections by 250 people a month. Where are you now? Well, I'm not doing anything. I post once a week and I'm barely growing my following. Okay, great. So what's the price that you're paying for that? For not having that system in place that allows you to easily post 5 times a day and increase your following by 250 people a month? Well, I'm not growing my business because I don't have those new people coming into my business that I can invite into my next step. But you don't need to know why they're not posting daily, or the fact that they don't like social media because, Aunt Nellie likes to post things. So stay out of their story. You also need to make sure to keep open-ended questions the norm so that you can go deeper. Now, most of us know what open-ended questions are. They're simply questions that can't be answered with a yes or a no, right? Right? Okay, so right is a yes or no question, correct? So it's either right yes or right no. An open-ended question is something like, so if I could wave my magic wand, what would your life look like a year from now? Or what would be possible if you were making multi-six figures a year? Those are open-ended questions. So, are you ready for my super tip of the day? This is the biggest shift I made in my sales conversations that made the most difference in me closing sales. And I did it by accident the first time, but then I started doing it on every sales call and was amazed how many times I had people saying to me, wow, you really get me. How do I work with you? Would that be good to have people saying, how do I work with you on every sales call? Cool. Okay, so here's the super tip. It's called mirroring. Now, you may have heard of mirroring. If you ever heard of NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, NLP practitioners are taught mirroring in a physical sense. So mirroring looks like if you're sitting across the table from a potential client and they brush their hair back, then you brush your hair back. Or if they cross their legs, you cross your legs. So you're mimicking, in effect, what physical actions that they're taking. Now, be honest with you, I'm NLP certified and all that kind of good stuff, and that always felt a little bit sleazy to me, right? So I don't know if it does to you. But here's what I do. I mirror back what I heard to make sure I'm crystal clear. And by doing that, people hear that you get them. And when they feel like you really get them, that you understand what they want and what their pain is, they naturally want to work with you. So here's what you do. Once you've gotten really clear on what their vision is and what their pain is, what that gap is, you simply say to them, okay, so I think I've kind of got a good idea of where we are right now. Would it be okay if I tell you what I'm hearing? Just make sure I've got it right. And then get a yes. And once they say yes, then you simply, in 2 or 3 sentences, mirror back what you heard about what they want versus what they have right now and what that gap is, the price that they're paying. It's also important, it's critical in fact, that you use their exact words wherever you can. So as you're in the conversation, be sure to jot down some of the key words that they used so that when you mirror back, you can use exactly the words that they used. So as a for instance, I might say something like, okay, so Sally, what I hear is that your dream is to have a business that's totally independent of location, that you can work from anywhere in the world, supporting your clients and creating group coaching programs so that you can give your clients what they really want, create phenomenal results around social media, but be able to do it working around 20 to 25 hours a week and traveling at least 4 months of the year. And where you are right now is that you're doing all one-on-one work. And so you're feeling pretty much tied to your phone and your computer. And even more so, a lot of your clients right now are in person. So you're doing more coffee chats, if you will, to do your coaching calls. So you just don't feel like you can do that right now. That, unless you make a big change in your business model, that vision of having that location independent business just isn't going to happen. Is that pretty much sum it up? And here's where the magic starts. When you nail this and you really bring in as much of the emotion as you can of how they're feeling, people will say something like, oh my God, that's exactly how I feel. How do I work with you? You get me. I need to know how I can work with you. Now, isn't that an easier way for you to transition into making your offer when they're asking you how to work with you? Sound cool? This mirroring technique fundamentally changed my conversion from that 20-ish rate to 40 to 50% overnight. You up for that? Cool. So this key number 3 is so critical. And mirroring is going to be the difference for you. But I still have a couple more tips for you, right? Keys, I should say. So key number 4, create urgency to act. Now, when you mirror back where they are versus where they want to be, and you make that gap so crystal clear, that in and of itself creates urgency. Because people will basically say, you know what, I'm done. I can't live with this anymore. I need support to figure this out. But the urgency has to be real, not manufactured. I'm not a big fan of fast action bonuses and some of those things that are taught out there a lot. I am a fan of urgency, but I want it to be real. I want it to be because they can't wait another day to change where they are. Now, granted, I will do urgency based on limited number of people or an expiration date on a pricing or something like that. But you have to have people know that the impact of where they are is so big that they have an urgent need to act now. And when you do that, you want it to be authentic. Don't lie. Don't tell people you're only taking 10 people in this program unless you are. Don't tell people that this special price is only good on this call if that's the price you always sell it at. Those kinds of things always come back to bite you. So be honest and create an urgency that's real, not manufactured. Now, if you want to create urgency to say yes on the call, my recommendation is that you create urgency by adding value. So for instance, if I am doing a one-on-one call with someone and inviting them into my year-long Rapid Results Club program, it's a fairly big investment in that program. If I want to create urgency for them to act, I may say, because you took the time to be on the call with me today, if you say yes today, I'm going to give you a complimentary VIP day with me. And whether I do a half day or full day, that's up to a $2,500 value. So that's a real bonus. And I charge $2,500 to do a full day VIP day with me. So that's not manufactured. That is a real price that my clients pay if they want a VIP day. But it's not manufactured. So create urgency by having them feel the emotional need to take action because you're so clear on that gap, or by offering bonuses or next steps that create urgency naturally versus in a fake kind of way. Okay, so that's key number 4. Key number 5 is drive for decisions. Here's the deal. Being in a place of indecision is the worst place to be. It doesn't serve you and it doesn't serve the client. I would much rather have an empowered no than I would, I kind of want to do this, but I'm not sure. I need to think about it. I need to ask 29 more questions. I want people that know it's time to act and they're ready to move forward. So the key in terms of driving for decisions, and there are a number of steps that I teach in the Rapid Enrollment Formula that kind of go around this whole decision process, because first you have to decide, the first decision you get to make is, do you want to work with this client? Is it a good fit? And if it isn't a good fit, we'll talk about what you do in that case. The best way that you can serve someone is to have them make a powerful yes or no decision. Now, oftentimes I'll have people say, well, what if they don't want to make a decision on the call? And in my Rapid Enrollment program, I walk you through how to handle concerns, which the top 3 concerns are, I don't have the money or the time, and usually those can be one and the same. I need to think about it, or I need to talk to a spouse or a business partner, something like that. Those are those 3 concerns are going to cover about 90% of what you're going to hear at the end of a call. If they have those kind of concerns, how do I drive for a decision? Well, here's the deal. A decision may be to give them 24 hours and schedule a call tomorrow. But the key is that you have to have a specific follow-up in place. The other thing that you can do to drive for decisions is to find out how committed they are. So particularly if the client, when you mirror back, if they don't naturally say, okay, how do we work together? The way that I will bridge to the offer is to ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to getting, and then I fill in the blank on whatever it is that they say that they want. If they say that they're anything less than an 8, they're not ready. And then we can talk in the rapid enrollment formula about what you do. You want them to be at least an 8 to a 10, preferably a 9 or a 10, that they're ready to take action. And if they are a 9 and a 10, then it's very easy transition to say, okay, so would it be okay if I told you about a way that we could work together that I believe will support you in getting X, Y, and Z, and then fill in whatever their gap is. Does that sound easy? It's not pushy, it's not salesy. You're asking for permission again, right? And naturally then you can go into talking about what your program is. And there will be times when they're just not simply ready to make a decision. And there's lots of reasons for that I share in the rapid enrollment formula. But the bottom line is, if that's the case, you have to agree to follow up. So let me just touch on a few keys to success around driving for decisions. Because here's where the rubber meets the road, right? This is when you get a yes or a no. So here's some keys to success in getting a decision. Number 1 is to assess the commitment. That's what I said about using on a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you? That can be really key in understanding where they are, as well as actually getting a yes or a no. The second thing is to always focus on the benefits of working with you. The bottom line is, people buy you and the transformation that you help them create, the closing of that gap. They don't buy the features, if you will, of what you sell. They don't buy the fact that you post 5 times a day for them on social media. What they buy is, I'm your partner in getting your content on social media on a daily basis, multiple times a day, so that your ideal clients are getting to know you. That's what they want. They want the benefit. It's also critical, as we said, you have to use their language, particularly when you're mirroring. But anytime through the decision process, you want to remind them of what they said they wanted. So let's say that they said that they have a cash imperative to get their business up and running because they have a child starting college in 4 years, and that they need to be able to save for college and have that nest egg in place for college in 4 years. So when they tell you at the end of the call, let's say that they say, well, I don't have the money right now to do this. It's really easy for you to use their language and to go back and say, well, you said that you're committed to creating this business because you want to create that nest egg for Sally's college. Without moving forward with support, how are you going to do that? And then be quiet and let them process. So you have to get them to see where they're stopping and what's stopping them for them to move forward in making a decision. But always use their language back to them. You also want to handle concerns openly and directly. There are lots of techniques for handling quote-unquote objections. And honestly, a lot of them work. But if they're not authentic to you, and if you're not being authentic when you say them, people can feel that. And I find that when you just, again, have a conversation with people and you handle their concerns openly and directly, like I just said about the college situation, you know what? You told me you're committed to getting this business going because you need to create that nest egg for college. If we don't work together, what's going to change? When you just matter of fact play that back to them, people appreciate it. And that's taking a stand for them, right? Cool. Can you see yourself using some of these techniques and not feeling pushy or salesy? It's easy, right? Okay, the last one, and oh so important in terms of decisions. Never end a call without either a yes or a no or a follow-up plan. Now, I teach some techniques for something I call the pillow test in the rapid enrollment formula. We won't go into that today, but the bottom line is you want an agreement to follow up with them. Because who likes to chase anybody? Anybody out there like to chase somebody? I'm guessing the answer is no. when you end the call by saying, okay, I get that you need to talk to your spouse tonight. Awesome. And you give them some support in doing that. So what time tomorrow works better to follow up? 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock? Don't leave the call without that next step follow-up. Because otherwise, then you're like, oh, I don't really have permission to call them back, but they haven't called me. Or they say they'll call you, but they haven't called. And that's how you get into that chasing people ickiness feeling. So avoid that by ending the call with a specific follow-up if you don't get an empowered yes or no decision. Cool. So those tips helpful for driving that decision? Awesome. Okay. You can do this. If I can go from hating sales and dreading every sales call to absolutely today loving the sales conversation, I can't wait to do strategy sessions. It's one of the most favorite parts of my business, to have these conversations with people, because I know in that strategy session, whether or not they work with me, I can change their life. In fact, I have a gal that's in my community that about 8 years ago, she was referred to me by another client, in fact, and she was in a place where she was considering starting a coaching business, a health coaching business. And she wasn't sure if she wanted to do it. She wasn't sure if she could do it. She was in a pretty rough place in her life. She was in the middle of a pretty bad divorce, had some issues going on with her children, a pretty tough situation. And we had it was probably 45 minutes or an hour call. And I used a lot of the keys that we talked about today and just had a conversation with her, got her really clear on what she wanted in this new world she was creating as a single mom, and what was in her way of making that happen, where she was right now and the price she was paying. And I invited her to work with me as a one-on-one client at that point. And her money conversation was too big. She simply didn't have the funds to be able to do it. So she chose not to work with me, which was perfectly fine. Fast forward 8 years. I still run into this gal. She actually lives fairly local to me. I still run into her occasionally. I cannot see her in the grocery store without her telling me that I changed her life. In that hour call, she saw what was possible. And she went on to create a coaching business that is now fully covering her income needs and supporting her 2 children. She loves what she's doing. And she's continuing to be more and more successful and add more and more programs. And every time I see her, she tells me I changed her life with that call, and that she never would have done all that if it wasn't for our call. And she never even worked with me. I'll do that all day long, because I know that 40 to 50% of people that do work with me are going to have those kinds of results and more. You can do this too. You just need to have a system. That's all it is. You just need to have a structure that allows you to have that conversation in a way that feels natural and authentic, and allows you to do what you do, to share your genius with people and invite them to work with you at a deeper level. So you ready for that? I think you are. And I'd love to talk to you more about it. So for being here today, for watching this video, taking this time, which by the way, I want to thank and acknowledge you for taking the time to watch this video, I want to give you the opportunity to take this further. And I want to do that by offering you the opportunity to schedule a call with me. If you go to connectwithsherri.com, you'll find a real short little survey there. And when you fill out those 4 or 5 questions, it'll take you directly to my booking link. And you'll be able to pick a time to have a session with me. I call them rapid results session. And in that 45-minute call, let's talk about where you are with your business. Let's talk about what's stopping you in the sales conversation. What do you love about it and what do you hate about it? What are the results that you're really getting? And what might you do to shift those results, to get to that 40 to 50% yes in your conversations. Would that be valuable? I hope so. Now, I also want to give you a little thank you for scheduling this complimentary session. So when you schedule a session with me, go to connectwithsherri.com and schedule your rapid results session. I'm going to send you one of the favorite resources that my clients use. It's called 65 Powerful Questions for Rapid Enrollment. And it gives you those open-ended questions that you can use at every step in the sales process in order for you to move it forward. So would that be valuable? Yeah. So schedule a complimentary session with me and you're going to get access to this free tool. Cool? Sound cool? So one of the things that's really cool about it is I've actually set it up so that it gives you the questions in 5 areas that correspond to the 5 key steps in the rapid enrollment formula. And I want to real quick just take you through the 5-step rapid enrollment formula. This is a formula that I created. I used the acronym RAPID for the 5 steps. And it's the 5 steps that I use in every sales conversation that I have that have been responsible for moving me and most of my clients from that 20-ish sales conversion to as much as 40 to 50%. That be helpful? Yeah. So let me just go over each of the steps really quickly. And when you get the 65 powerful questions, you're going to get questions around each one of these steps that you can use in having this conversation. The R was our key number 1, to build rapport. Always start with that know, like, and trust factor and build rapport, as we talked both before the call and at the very beginning of the call. Once you have that rapport, the second step is our A, where you ask powerful questions to clarify their vision, to get them really clear on what it is that they want in their life, what they really want deep down, and have it be juicy, have them be able to see, taste, touch, feel, and smell it. That's our A with powerful questions. Once you know their vision, then you get to paint a picture of the present pain. You need to know what it's costing them, where they are right now, and what that pain is. What's it costing them? Because only when you know where they want to go versus where they are now and the pain that it's causing, will you be able to get to step 4, which is impact and urgency. To have them see the impact of staying where they are and create an urgent need to take action. And when you've done that, when they are sitting in that pain, quite honestly, and the impact of that pain, and they have an urgent need for a solution, who's going to be the solution? You are. And in the D, you're going to design the right next step for the person and support them in making a decision. So that's our 5-step rapid enrollment formula. I'd love to tell you more about this formula and maybe see which of these steps is getting in your way of having success in your one-on-one sales conversations. That'd be valuable? Cool. So all you have to do to schedule that complimentary call is to go to connectwithsherri.com, and Sherri is SHERRI, and get on my calendar. We'll talk about where you are, we'll talk about where you want to go, and how I might support you in taking that next step. Thank you so much for being here today. I've enjoyed sharing the rapid enrollment formula with you and the 5 keys to getting more yeses in your sales conversations. I plan to do a lot more of these little off-the-cuff videos and just taking you through all of the things that I use in my business to support my private clients. So stay tuned. Watch your email for what's next. So go to connectwithsherri.com right now, schedule your complimentary rapid results session, and let's talk. Bye, everybody.